Cruickshank Park, the Humber River, beautiful oasis in the middle of Toronto, and I'm here to tell you about our plans to re-protect this river. Last fall, the Conservative government passed Bill C-45, which removed environmental protections from hundreds of thousands of rivers, lakes, streams all over Canada, including this one. It's called the Navigable Waters Protection Act, and it was the basis, the cornerstone of protecting water in this country for more than 100 years. And with one stroke of the pen, the Conservatives removed protection from waterways such as this, such as the Humber, all over Ontario and the rest of Canada. It's our intent, the NDP, to re-protect these waters, and tomorrow I will be launching a private member's bill that will protect the Humber River from Lake Ontario all the way to the source. Thank you. What does it mean that it's not protected? What it means is that unbridled and unencumbered development can occur all along its length. The development can take water from the river, can put in houses, buildings, etc., can put in bridges, can siphon water, can redirect the flow of water, all without federal oversight, all without any kind of environmental protection. And what that means is that provinces and municipalities, which are hard-strapped for cash in the first place, are forced to pick up the slack, and we don't know if they will. It will depend on each province, on each municipality. So it's our intention to re-protect this water, to re-protect this wonderful piece of Canada that is the water source for much of Toronto. And the 5 million people that live in the GTHA, the headwaters of this are on the Oak Ridges Moraine. And these headwaters encompass an enormous part of Ontario. And those headwaters, if not protected, means that our water is not protected. What else does it mean? There are pipelines crossing this waterway. Under the Navigable Waters Protection Act, which is what this used to be protected by, if a company wants to run a pipe across the water, they have to put a shutoff on either side of the water that is automatically able to stop the flow of oil or whatever other stuff is in that pipe so that it doesn't get in the water. That's no longer necessary for this river. And there's at least 2 major oil pipelines that cross this river just north of it. Line 9 is right in the city of Toronto, and there's another Enbridge pipeline further north. Neither of those pipelines would need to protect the water if the Navigable Waters Protection Act protection is removed from this river. Those are important considerations. That is a very crucial part of what we are as Canadians. Water is how people travel. Water is what people drink. Water is a huge part of what makes our electricity, what makes our country go. And to not protect it anymore is short-sighted, is the purpose for which we can't understand it, we have to understand it. There's a number of people in Toronto who are really concerned about the reversal of Line 9, which is a Enbridge oil pipeline that currently flows from east to west, taking refined product generally to Sarnia. They want to reverse it and flow oil from Alberta to Montreal and Points East. People want to know that their environment will be protected if that's done. And without a protection under the Navigable Waters Protection Act, it's not necessarily going to happen. Right now, the only agency that's looking at this for any reason whatsoever is the National Energy Board. The National Energy Board has already said you can't talk about what's in it, you can't talk about where it's going, and you can only talk about whether you are personally affected by it. I can't, because it's a little bit north of here, I can't appear at the hearings because it's not my riding, and I'm not personally affected. You have to actually
live next to the pipe in order to be able to say something at the hearings. That's not any way to conduct an environmental assessment. And it's not really an environmental assessment. It's a National Energy Board hearing of some description, giving a commission.
In your riding, is there any threat of development?
Well, there's always, I mean, Mike will be able to tell you more about that when he talks, but this is protected by the Toronto Region Conservation Authority's aegis. They have some oversight over what development can go on the banks, what things can happen. But if there was to be a proposal for a major federal work or undertaking, federal trumps Toronto Region, federal government would be able to do it. There isn't one that I'm aware of, unless there's another plan for a pipeline we haven't heard about. But it's certainly not impossible. There's golf courses north of here want to suck water out of the Humber River to water their golf courses. Is that a good thing? Is that something that should have an environmental assessment attached to it? Is that something we should be worried about? Without the kind of protection that the Navigable Waters Protection Act gave it, we may never know.
So private members bill, what chance does this have of actually getting
All private members' bills eventually make it, but the Conservative government has turned down many private members' bills. They have a majority. They're likely to do that again. But we certainly think it's something they should seriously consider. There are a number of Conservatives who have ridings that abut these rivers. And the folks in their ridings are not going to be happy if those rivers aren't protected. So I would think there'd be some pressure on the Conservatives to actually rethink that decision to cut off hundreds of thousands of rivers. Over to you, Mike.
Over to me. Okay, take it away. Thank you for all coming out. I'm very happy to see you here. As I have said, I'm one of the City of Toronto's representatives as the Conservation Authority, and we try to make sure that the Humber is protected at all levels. Now, the Humber recently got a C as a grade on its report card. That grade is not going to improve if we have intensification, we have higher peak water flows, and we have lower summer flows because we have no water seeping into the ground. We also have other issues with the Humber. The city is about to spend millions of dollars to extend the mouth of the Humber because polluted water is getting into the Toronto water system and into the Sunnyside Beach area. We also are removing the weirs because they're wearing out and they're going to cause problems. Now, the weirs were put there to stop the lamprey coming up, which is an international problem. So we have several projects in the Humber, and this is a very good opportunity to do a holistic approach to how do we make the Humber safe for the next generation. So I commend Mike for bringing this to our attention. We need everybody to help us protect the Humber. So we're going to have clean water, and hopefully we'll be able to canoe from Weston to the lake and enjoy the benefits of the Humber for the rest of our lives and for the rest of our children's lives. And if you have any questions other than my job title, please ask now.
Do you test the water to make sure that the fish is safe? Because I noticed that more and more people are actually fishing in the river these days.
Yes, and that's why the Humber got a C. It got a C because most of the time the water in the Humber is very safe. It's only when we have these flood issues that the water becomes polluted. And the fish that they're catching live in Lake Ontario. The salmon and the trout swim up for spawning reasons, and they're only in the Humber for a few days. So they're as safe as Lake Ontario, and really the Humber has to protect Lake Ontario by being clean.
Is the Conservation Authority the one that did the report card?
Yes.
And it's not based on water quality. It's based on, sorry, just say that again. It's not based on water quality that it got a C for, it's because of...
The water quality aspect of the report card was a C. Most of the time the water in the Humber is quite good. It's basically the storm surges that cause the problem. It's forestation that's really the biggest problem. We need more trees in the Humber.
What authority does the Conservation Authority have?
The powers of the Conservation Authority? Basically, the area within the floodplain of the Humber is very tightly controlled, such as this park that we're standing in. Unfortunately, we don't get a lot of control over a big box store wiping out a forest up at the top of the hill. And that is part of the problem. We would lose water capture at the top of the hill, and we would get a big rush of water into the Humber every time there's a rainstorm. and that big surge causes damage to the river. And then the fact that it didn't go into the ground means that a few months later the river level will be lower.
Is there any action you can take as a result of this sort of thing?
Well, there are standards for permeability, and projects should meet those standards. And that's really where we have to push to make sure that all projects meet the standards and that we improve
And if they don't?
quality. Pardon me?
And if they don't?
I'm really not sure. Very few projects don't at least make some attempt. I think the biggest problem is if we totally pave over the province at the standard, it won't be good enough. We have to improve the parts that have already been degraded. We have to put in more trees. We have to replace asphalt with permeable. There's a lot of things we have.
Itself, to show you just how enormous the Humber watershed really is. This is us way down here, right at the bottom. And this is Ontario, and it's actually probably a third of southern Ontario. That is the drainage into Lake Ontario from the Humber River. It needs protection. The little town of Oak Ridges is right here, and this is what is called the Oak Ridges Moraine, or part of it. And Mary Louise was as part of the Historical Society, helped build this map and brochure.
But this was regarded as extremely important, and at the very least, Mike, you should arrange that all heritage rivers, this is designated as a Canadian Heritage River, all heritage rivers should receive the extra protection. Now, I believe that all rivers are important. I shouldn't say the other rivers are not important, but especially important are those that are designated under the federal Heritage Act.